funny you go back and look at some of these things and how they come full circle. So I'm looking at a podcast that I started in 2019. It was called dataSmarts. This was back on a platform called Anchor that doesn't even exist anymore. It was since acquired by Spotify, I'm pretty sure. But the cool thing is that back then, first episode I did was about what you need to know about device IDs. And what this was basically you were able to aggregate device ID data, and then you could see which devices were basically going in and out of different locations, and then you could take that and pass that in for targeting. All that to be said, back in 2019, I bought the domain name dataSmarts, and I had a couple blog posts up about just different technology and data related items that I was working on. I was coming out of being VP of product development at Sear. I was moving into my role as VP of IT at the YMCA, and I was still doing some contract like data analytics and product development. And at the time I was like, dude, this is definitely going to be something like data and what you can do with data and how it was influencing advertising at the time specifically. This is really an interesting time in this space, and it's really unlocking a lot of doors. Maybe I should, start sharing my thoughts here. So that was July 8th, 2019, first episode. Second episode, November of 2019. Then didn't do another episode until January of 2021. And then another one in January of 2021. And that's it. And I stopped, right? Anchor got acquired by Spotify. I believe my website was built on Wix at the time. Just stopped updating it. Moved into a new role at Adams. And just kind of let it linger. Didn't really update it. So really my entire time at Adams, I've been really focusing on technology, marketing. My role as VP of innovation is really just trying to figure out like what's the next thing, and then how do we do it? Ideally, how do we do it before anybody else does it? But specifically this year, well, towards the end of last year and then the beginning of this year, really started to dive into chat agents, workflows, did a cool project or a proof of concept where I was using vector databases and vector embeddings and, built out a chat agent in Slack that could read, hundreds of PDF documents. But all along, I was trying to document and share, some of the things that I was finding out because it's a new space, right? I believe the one project I just presented on this last week, the one project I did took like 6 or 7 different tools, some of which people have heard of, right? Like you've heard of ChatGPT, but you probably have never heard of Pinecone. You maybe have never heard of N8N, right? A lot of people have used Zapier, but maybe not Make.com, maybe not Workato, maybe not FME. So I have this unique position where I'm trying to figure out how technology can be used to solve business problems. And I had started posting and just sharing it on LinkedIn. And then I was getting some questions and some comments and people asking me, how do you do this or how do you do that? And I thought maybe I should take this stuff and put it back on the dataSmarts website. So I did. I'm going through the process of creating what will be like a newsletter, right? So I'm going to create a newsletter and publish basically the projects or even just the learnings that I have through trying to use these tools in my role with others. Hopefully it can help them. I find myself a lot of times doing like a one-on-one meeting with someone to show them how I did something. And I feel like that just doesn't really scale, right? It doesn't really scale. There's not enough time to meet with a bunch of people one-on-one to show them the different things that we might be doing that might be able to help them as well. But if I do it in this format, it almost like is self-documenting, right? So after importing my old podcast into Spotify and setting that back up, I actually just released my first episode in 4 years. So we had a little gap there from January 2021 to April of 2025, fitting that it's Easter weekend when going through a little rebirth of a really important project that you used to work on. So all that to say, pretty excited to have a home really for this technology and data and marketing. All of these things kind of combine, right? I mean, it seems like all of these different historically disparate either use cases or jobs are now all kind of getting mashed up, right? Because with AI and automation, that affects content creation, which is heavily on the marketing side. It also, affects data integration and reporting, right? Which is also something that I'm very interested in. So I'm excited to announce that I've got my dataSmarts newsletter up and running. The website is datasmarts.io. I actually have datasmarts.io and datasmarts.co. I'm going to merge them probably to datasmarts.io. I think that's what we're going to do. But basically, I'm just going to commit to trying to do this maybe once a week, maybe more often, I don't know, as time permits. But just share my thoughts here on the podcast, in the newsletter. Not exactly sure the exact format of the content. I've got a couple different ideas. One would be, just reviewing the things that I'm doing. Another one would be maybe answering questions other people have, or reviewing work that other people have done, reviewing platforms. So there's a lot in this space. So I'm probably going to experiment with a couple different formats just to see which one works the best, which one I like, which one's the easiest to do. But, I'm pretty excited. So I'll put a link to sign up to the newsletter down below or above, depending on what platform this is posted on. And hopefully all the automations that I've built for the newsletter sign up workflow work. This would be a good test. So excited to share the happenings and the discovery that comes with, trying to be an early adopter in the AI and automation space, right? Because ultimately for me, you hear a lot of people talking about AI and automation in terms of revenue generation, right? It's do this and scale faster, make more money, etc. And that is super important. But to me, the thing that is the most exciting about this is the amount of freedom that can be created off the back of some of these systems, right? If you can automate away a job that used to take you 3 or 4 hours a week, that is 3 or 4 hours a week that you get back, right? That might be a basketball practice you can attend. That might be a baseball game that you can get to on time. And that, as, a father to two kids that are actively in sports, my oldest, Aiden, isn't playing sports anymore, so it's not quite as chaotic with his schedule. But for two young kids that are athletes, they always have games. They're always, practices. There are all these things that I want to be at. And the idea that I could use technology to still perform, my work, my job, take care of the responsibilities I have at an extremely high level, but then also have the freedom in which you're not weighed down by these routine, repetitive tasks that you could otherwise spend a little bit of time creating a workflow, creating an agent to automate. That to me is super exciting. So hopefully if that's exciting to you too, you come along for the ride. And what I share here can help you also remove a little bit of chaos from your life and your business, and hopefully, give you a little bit more freedom. So, with that, all I have to say is stay smart.